Yeah.
Today.
Well, Justin and Zach from Greater Minnesota Trauma Center here to talk about different kinds of trauma and walk us through a helpful exercise. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so is there a proper way of dealing with emotions?
That is a good question. I don't think there's any one particular way, right, to deal with emotions. I think that, you have to figure out what works for you. A lot of people, are worried about even reaching out to therapists, that sort of stigma that's still on that. So I think that, one of the biggest things is reaching out to somebody who is a professional in the field. I mean, today with AI and ChatGPT, I use Chat to help me with my notes for sure, but I think you can get a lot of bad information. So I think, reaching out to people who are trained in the field to sort of help guide you with those types of things is really important.
For sure. What about the fear factor that when people express their emotions, that it might come back to bite them later on, whether it's with a person or just in general?
I think part of it is making sure that whom you're talking to is somebody you trust, you feel like you can be real with, and then over time, hearing that feedback from them, but also, again, when you recognize the people in my life aren't able to help me get to a root cause of that, then yeah, finding a professional that you do trust that can do that with you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about trauma. What are the different kinds of trauma?
So trauma is sort of the big buzzword, right? We've been using that a lot lately. But I want to be really clear. Traumatic experiences vary for everybody.
For sure.
For example, you could have sort of a single episode traumatic experience. The one we sort of like to use is maybe a car accident. So for example, if Zach and I are driving, we're in an accident. Our experiences of that may be very different.
For sure.
Right? Zach may walk away and go, yeah, that sucked, and then just sort of move about his day. Whereas I may walk away from that and go, I'm having flashbacks, I'm having nightmares, I'm really anxious, I can't get back in a vehicle. That is what trauma is. And then there is complex trauma, which is sort of several traumatic experiences, usually in childhood, abuse, neglect, those kinds of things.
For sure.
And that is complex trauma, which is, a different thing. There's different approaches for that. But I want to be clear, trauma is not the event itself, right? So trauma is how our nervous system receives that. So with the single episode example I was using, right? Not everything is traumatic. It really is just about how our bodies and our nervous system respond to those.
For sure. What's an exercise that people can do if they do find themselves dealing with trauma, whether it is a single episode or complex?
Yeah, you ready for this one? So Zach and I were sort of practicing on the way over here. But one of the things is to be playful, right? Even as adults, we don't use a lot of play anymore. So this can be helpful for adults, this can be helpful for kids. So bear with me. We're going to be a little playful here.
Okay,
right?
I like it. Yep.
So, so I want you to just sort of ground yourself. Take a deep breath.
Okay.
Closing
nice.
eyes.
Open or closed, either way.
Okay.
So take your deep breath.
Okay.
Really. And now I want you to make sort of a bear sound, so a growl.
A bear?
A bear. So what do you notice when you do that?
Laugh.
When you laugh, it's playful, but also you're vibrating your vocal cords, right? So your vocal cords are vibrating, which also stimulates your vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, that'd be a whole hour show, but that's what that does, right? So that's the first part. Okay, so now I want you to sort of have owl eyes. So I want you to sort of look around the room as if wide-eyed and like an owl, right? So just sort of 1, 2, right? Just sort of like what an owl would do. Obviously, we can't go all the way around, right? But as you're moving, this sort of engages like social engagement, right? We're observing. We're slowly taking it all in, right? And then the last step would be, so I want you to do a lizard freeze. I just want you to pause. Don't move. You can move your eyes. Just be still, be quiet. And I want you to just notice maybe 3 things that you can hear here in the studio. If anybody wants to name 3 things you can hear.
Our director in our ear.
Okay, well, they can hear that. The generator over there, I'm sure you guys can hear as well. The lights humming is another one that I can hear.
Yeah, very nice. So those are all grounding, right?
Okay.
You're hearing things, and in those moments, you at least for a moment, you're taking yourself out of the anxiety, the racing thoughts, and you're grounding yourself. That can be a playful one that you can use with your children, nieces, nephews, you name it. So,
if somebody wanted to find you guys and reach out, how could they do that?
Yeah, so best place is to go to our website at gmntc.org, or they could call us at 507-720-1401. And we're really active on social media also, so you can find us on
Awesome.
Facebook.
Thank you guys.
so
I
much.
feel peaceful already.
Yeah, wonderful.
And so